The purpose of this lab was to determine the limited reactant by observing the precipitate formed by copper sulfate and potassium hydroxide, using the mole ratio for each solution. Stoichiometry is a quantitative relationship between amounts of reactants and products. It is based on the law of conservation of mass. So what is concentration? Concentration is the ratio of solute in a solution to either solvent or total solution. The materials we used for the lab were 8 test tubes, 2 burettes, a beaker, a spatula, a metric ruler, copper sulfate, and potassium hydroxide. First, we filled one burette with 0.2 milliliters of KOH and the other with 0.1 milliliters of CuSO4. Next, we added 5 milliliters of CuSO4 into all 8 of the test tubes. After we distributed an increased amount of 1 milliliter of KOH into each test tube. Then we put enough water into each tube to reach a solution of 13 milliliters. We stirred the solutions and let them sit for 15 minutes. Lastly, we measured the height of the precipitate formed in milliliters. We observed the precipitate formed was a crystal-like slushy blue substance. The water was separated at the top of the product. The tubes that had less water added to it were more concentrated, causing the color of the precipitate to be darker. The limited reactant was found by measuring the precipitate formed by mixing the solutions using different ratios. In tubes 1 through 4, the precipitate increased in height due to the limited reactant being KOH. On the other hand, the precipitate was leveled off in tubes 6 through 8 because the limiting reactant was changed to CuSO4. It becomes the limited reactant because it can only produce 5 milliliters of precipitate. Tube 5 had no limiting reactant or excess. We were able to confirm limiting reactants with mole ratios. When balancing the equation, we discovered there was a double displacement reaction. Some errors that could be made during this lab are inaccurate measurements for either the precipitate, water, or the solutions. For example, there could have been too much or not enough solution dispensed from the burette. To prevent an error like this, we can slowly open the burettes and carefully measure each substance.